The DNA, we should say, doesn't stand for deoxyribonucleic acid. It stands
Doesn't
for
it?
dream. No, it doesn't. No. It stands for dream, nightmare, action, which is the pattern we live in life. And this pattern of dream, nightmare, action is how we understand, plan, and problem solve our lives.
Every day.
Every day. Every moment of the
Every
day,
day.
from getting the kids up to trying to solve the climate crisis. It's this, what do we do? What's the dream? What's going to get in the way of it, the nightmare? What actions do we take? We discovered that the best way to build the trust and drive the engagement and influence the change is start by understanding the other person and connecting to their dream before you start forcing the problems and the actions.
Hello, and welcome to Storytelling for Business, the podcast that helps you connect with your customers and clients by simply using stories. Of course, there's nothing actually simple about it, but we'll get to that. I'm Katie Flamman. I'm a voice actor specialising in corporate storytelling. I work remotely with clients all over the world, clients like Amex, Pfizer and Nat Geo. But I love working with SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises, and startups as well. Everyone, big or small, gets the same level of service. Because, weirdly, it doesn't really matter to me who you are or how big you are. What matters is the stories you're telling. That's what I love about my job. And you see, in corporate marketing, some stories, some scripts, are better than others. And I wanted to find out why that is. What are the ingredients and what's the formula for a great story? One that makes the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, makes you want to cry, makes you feel seen. And those feelings are intense. And if they're happening when you're watching an advert or a brand film or reading a post on LinkedIn, that is powerful. So, the Storytelling for Business podcast is on a mission to understand all this stuff. I'm talking to storytelling experts and real-life regular business owners too, who have interesting jobs and, of course, fascinating stories. And today's episode, it's going to be a cracker because I've got the pleasure of talking to David Pullen and Sarah Jane McKechnie, who are the Story Spotters. So, quick intro. David and Sarah Jane are, in my view, the power couple of the storytelling world. They offer business consulting, coaching and training. They've worked with a few companies you might have heard of, Microsoft, EY, PwC, Novartis, AXA, American Express. I could go on. They work with clients, all kinds of clients, to discover, develop and deliver a strategic story that connects and wins. And they very kindly shared the tricks of their trade with all of us in their exceptional new book, The DNA of Engagement. Here it is. Well, anyway, that's quite enough from me. Let's actually let them talk for a minute. So let's meet them. David Pullen and Sarah Jane McKechnie, welcome to Storytelling for Business.
Hello.
Thank you, Katie. That's going to be incredibly hard to top.
It's all true.
On the wake of your amazing introduction. Thank you. And thank you for giving me this excuse after years of working together and more years of marriage to actually have to cuddle up to get into shots. So
your first ever cuddle on camera.
our first cuddle.
I bet it isn't. Okay, let's start. So, you are the Story Spotters. What does that mean? How did that become a thing?
Well, there are two things there. There's what it means and how it came to be. I mean, if I say how it came to be, then Sarah Jane can explain exactly what story spotting means, because it's as opposed to, it incorporates storytelling, but it has other elements to it as well. I mean, as you said earlier on, I mean, Sarah Jane McKechnie and David Pullen, which are two of the names that are often misspelt and more often mispronounced. So for years, we were called McKechnie Pullen Limited, which sounded like a sort of Midlands estate agent. And I was doing some work during lockdown, actually, with a guy called Neil Bearden, he's a stats prof, or was a stats prof at INSEAD in Singapore. And he got in touch with me on LinkedIn and said, listen, everything's going online. He taught storytelling at INSEAD as well. Said, listen, I'm taking it all online. I've got sort of too much to do. Would you come and support me on this? To which I said, yeah, brilliant, absolutely. And we got on really well. And one night after, because I say night because it was happening all over the world, and I'd be drinking espresso at 3:00 in the morning.
Oh.
Yeah, but fun, because really interesting people. And Neil said, I really like what you do, David. What actually do you do? And I said, well, essentially what Sarah Jane and I do is we go into organizations and whether it's a change program, whether it's a sales program, whatever, we listen to the facts that they're talking until we sort of, a little like Haley Joel Osment in who says, I see dead people. We see stories. So we listen to the facts and we go, I think the story you're trying to tell is this. And people say, oh, that's exactly what it is. Let's use that story as the hub off which the spokes of the facts and the data drive.
If you're in business, I'm so sorry, I'm interrupting you for a sec. If you're in business, you think in sort of bullet points and PowerPoints, maybe, don't you? And I mean, it seems to me that what you've just described is kind of seeing the heart behind that, or the emotion behind the thing.
It's that combination of logic and emotion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, our lives are a story.
Yeah.
Every day that we live, it's a story. That's the thing. We live through story. So it's an incredibly natural way to communicate, to understand things, to be able to make somebody else understand what you're talking about. And understanding is so incredibly, obviously understanding is the base of collaboration. So it's, story is, it's fundamental.
Well, it's what's allowed us to sort of rise up the food chain, essentially, and sort of be the ones that, have, for want of a better word, dominated the planet, because we do understand and plan and problem solve our lives through this, as Sarah Jane says, this concept, what is the story of our lives? And we help, and well, this is what Neil said. He said, oh, you're a story spotter. You help people spot the stories. And we said, well, we are now. Immediately rebranded.
That's a catchy business name.
Exactly. So thank you, Neil.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so there's a little bit on your website, which is this very cute little video. It's like the kind of, the About Us section on your website. And there's this sweet little video called 90 Seconds with the Story Spotters. And it's each of you guys sitting on a sofa, and it cuts between, it's one question and then each of you answers it. And it is questions like, what's your favourite breakfast? And who was your first kiss? And then under that, there's a more kind of traditional CV with the bullet points explaining how you both used to be actors and you've performed on stages around the world, and how you've been script writers for leaders and teams and trained as coaches and studied hypnotherapy. However, I have remembered all the things, but it's the smashed avocado and the behind the bike shed kiss that I remembered first, and that also kind of endeared me to you, even though I knew already. So that's kind of illustrating what Sarah Jane, what you're saying, isn't it? About we're always telling stories. They're little tiny snippets on those videos, but each one is a story.
And it creates a picture, and it creates the connection is so much stronger as soon as you can do that. And then you can and sharing that kind of, even if it's very small, you're sharing experiences. You're igniting something in somebody else's mind, because they're going then to the story that they have about any situation. Yeah. And it is our way. I mean, the basis of the Story Spotters really is we look at story in four ways, which is, one is the stories that you tell. Which, when you tell a story, you ignite things in other people's minds. That's the thing, and it's a wonderful way of explaining things, because that is how we live. We, as I said, every day is a story. So the stories that we tell in order to explain, the stories that we listen for, which is incredibly important, because by drawing stories out of others and being able to understand people better, if we hear the stories and are interested in other people's stories. So that's the connection that is so incredibly important. The stories that we tell by our behaviors, which because we don't have to say anything, it's just how we show up and all that kind of thing, the expression of our faces, the how we treat people, all those kinds of things tells a story, and and has an effect on other people around. And then there are the stories, my favorite, really.
Yeah.
It's the stories that we tell ourselves. It's constant.
Oh, yeah.
And we have that rambling, that we have that thing all the time. And when we, somebody might say something and all of a sudden it jars, and we are remembering something and we're triggered by something.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that, and it can sort of scupper all sorts of conversations, which are needed again for this collaboration. So to understand that, and to understand what triggers, why, and instead of kind of having that initial reaction to it, which might scupper you, is get curious instead. So
how can you reframe your own story?
Absolutely.
Turning your fear into excitement.
Yeah.
Turning your trigger into curiosity.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's something that you said there, Katie, about just remembering the stories we told about kisses behind bike sheds and stuff like that, and this picks up on what Sarah Jane was saying as well. I think that the power of the story is that combination of, it's essentially a fact in context, which brings the fact to life. And there's so much written on everywhere about leadership and vulnerability, but what does that actually mean? And I think the act of storytelling is an act of vulnerability in itself, because you're letting people into your heart as well as your head. And you're risking that somebody might say, well, I don't agree with you, which is great, because then you're in a discussion. And it's then
you've already made a connection.
Exactly.
Whether they agree with you or not, they've engaged with what you're saying.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. We're getting down to the nitty gritty already. I've got feeling a bit goosebumpy. Okay, so we've sort of skirted around it, but story has value, and all of those different 4 types of story. So that there's a whole podcast episode / book on that stuff. But so let's talk about your book, right? The book is called The DNA of Engagement. So come on, tell us all about the book. I've waved it around. I'll just say first, it's super fun. It's got pictures and diagrams and the Sarah Jane adventures, and it's divided into acts and scenes, and it's really accessible and fun. But it's a kick-ass blueprint, seriously, or an action plan for some really, really heavy stuff. So tell us about the book. What's the point of your book, please?
Well, I have to say, we were the people who never wanted to write a book, because basically who needs another business book? I mean, they're usually like a blog that got out of hand. And so it's, we 3 things happened. I mean, one, there was somebody who sort of saw the stuff we do on LinkedIn and said, you guys have got a tone of voice. You should really think about writing someone. Then we were doing this particular piece of work with Aviva, which under the leadership of Dame Amanda Blanc, when she was changing the strategy of the company, when she essentially said to her 200 top leaders, this is the strategy. We're slimming the company down in this way. This is the forward thinking. I can't do it myself. You have to make this happen. And there was a big piece of work that was led by Accenture about the strategy and what the leaders actually did mentally around that. When they suddenly realized, okay, that's one thing, but they then have to go out and have the conversations which get the 22,000 people at the time in the organization to lean in and go, oh yeah, I want to be part of that. So they brought us on board to create that part of the program about how do you get people essentially to be excited by the possibility, and then also co-create the future, co-create the story, which is really important. Actually, it's you can tell people stories, but if they add to it themselves and color the stories themselves, then they are more likely to buy into the story and make the story happen. So the book really is it's the journey of how we actually did that piece of work, plus tons of other stuff that we've done right throughout our careers with leaders, and that's what it is. And it's designed really as a guide to help people on the journey, people who have to have the conversations that build trust, which is the primary thing, which will drive engagement and therefore influence change, whether it's changing the direction of a company or changing your partner's mind about a restaurant that they don't want to go to.
Yes, that's always more difficult.
That's always a difficult one.
Yeah, I mean, we all know where the serious challenges are, right?
Doing technically, of course, Katie.
Yes.
So, okay, building trust. That's what everybody wants, right? Know, like, and trust, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think we've touched on it with talking about your little video and talking about vulnerability.
Yeah.
But how do we get them to trust us?
Well, do you want to talk about the whole understanding thing? Because there's we say it's basically the DNA. We should say doesn't stand for deoxyribonucleic acid. It stands for green. No, it doesn't. No, although we think it's as equally valid and worthy of a Nobel Prize.
Plus, I love it that you just said that as well.
Right. I can't show off. Yes, exactly. That would have been had to edit that one out. It stands for dream, nightmare, action, which is a pattern that we all. This is the thing that Sarah Jane was saying about the pattern we live in life. We have a dream. We have something that we want to achieve. We want to get on the call this morning with Katie, and it's going to be fantastic. And then the nightmare is, you've got to update your system or something like that. That gets in the way, and you've got 5 minutes to do. So the action is you start racing around trying to get it all done. And this pattern of dream, nightmare, action is how we understand, plan, and problem solve our lives. And what we
every day,
every moment of the day, from getting the kids up to trying to solve the climate crisis, it's this: what do we do? What's the dream? What's going to get in the way of it? The nightmare? What actions do we take? And we discovered that the best way this dream to build the trust and drive the engagement and influence the change is start by understanding the other person and connecting to their dream before you start forcing the problems and the actions. I don't know if you want to talk about that understanding.
I mean, it's like a toddler, isn't it? If you say to a toddler, and you're furious and you just want them to do something, put your wellies on, and they're determined not to do that because they don't want to put their wellies on, you have to find a different way of doing it. So you have to connect to the dream. And that lovely pond and puddle that you like playing with in the park, right? Well, we can go there today. I think it would be very nice to go down there. But you won't be able to go in the water unless you put your wellies on. So would it be a good idea to put them on now, and then we can have a really good splash? The thing is that we often, what we do is we say, put your wellies on. Because it's that thing. Now I don't want to put them on. Put them on. And because it's your plan that you think, no, I've got to go to the park now because then I've got to,
I haven't got time to discuss it.
I know. But actually discussing it saves time in the end.
Yes.
Exactly. And it's that whole thing of, on the basic level of this, is if you connect to people's dreams, or if you connect to people in the way that they need to be connected. It's your thing about connection before correction. It's the if you can connect and show that you understand, and you've heard, you've listened. All these things that allow space and connection, and then. Only then, when people are doing what you're doing now, which is nodding, it's that thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. This person understands me. It's such a basic human need. That then only then can you really have the right to say, but this is
introduce the nightmare.
Yes, exactly. This might not happen because, and give a reason. So it's. I think one of the things that's so important is to always remember that you have to care for your, and I'm going to use the word audience. And what I mean by audience is anybody, whether it's a toddler, whether it's 1,000 people in a hall, or whether it's your direct reports or whoever it is. Is you absolutely have to care about how they're going to get this message, what their agenda is, and or what you can agree with that. Start with it.
I think it's interesting you said those two words, connection and understanding, and connecting. And it's interesting. One of the things that we often think about is that this trust is built on understanding, and the understanding is twofold. I mean, we tend to trust those who we feel have understood us, who have connected with us.
Yes.
But we also trust things that we find it easy to understand, which is where storytelling comes in, because storytelling just puts everyone on the same page. They have a vivid picture of what things are going to look like. So being understood and making people understand are the basis of building trust, really.
Is it an example that I often use in workshops, and it's if you imagine that you're together for a family reunion or something, or I don't know, some festival that you have, and the family is there, and there's Uncle Fred, who you never normally see, and he won't talk about anything other than fishing. So that's his hobby. And so because
no problems with getting his wellies on.
But because we are in those kinds of family, often we feel benign, and it's a celebration and everything. We have the patience and the understanding to go up to Uncle Fred and say, "Oh, have you been fishing lately?" And we will listen and ask questions because we care.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of the fact that we do it automatically in certain situations, but when the pressure's on, and when we have a whole load of things, because we're kind of one track in terms of this is what I need to do, this is we stop. We kind of want to bypass that, because all our the humanity that we actually have often can it can recede, can't it?
No, it's really interesting. Yeah.
It's a beautiful example, isn't it?
Because
we might write the next book might be called The Fred Effect, but we don't know.
But I think in a corporate setting, so no, you're not really interested in fishing, right? But you care about Uncle Fred, and you care that he is interested in fishing.
Exactly.
So you want to tease out that conversation and make him feel welcome and make him feel seen. And, do you want another piece of cake? All of that stuff. And in a corporate setting, you're maybe you don't really necessarily care about your client's thing, but you have to care. You have to properly care and invest in the thing and learn about the thing, because they care. And actually, by the end of it, you probably do care.
I think it's a case of also we have huge agendas that we have, things that we need to that we have to achieve, and all that kind of thing. Which isn't, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's fraught. There's a lot going on. And so it is more likely that we don't stop, breathe, and think about, actually, this is a conversation I'm having.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, because we are all so time poor.
Yes.
In our personal lives and in our working lives. Everybody wants to just cut to the chase and get on with it. So let's talk about a few kind of like actual useful hard fact tip things that people can do to help them. And I appreciate that you've just described, you have to take the time. You can't rush this stuff. But if you've only got limited amount of time, how do you maximize the productivity of that time that you've got?
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. You do have to take the time, but it doesn't take a huge amount of time, because, I mean, one of the things we talk about in the book, Katie, is a thing called triune brain theory, which was developed in Yale in the 60s. And it's been sort of slightly outmoded now with sort of like neuroimagery and advances in neuroscience. But there's a basic premise behind it, which is still true for communication, is that our brain works in three ways. There's the reptilian, the oldest part of our brain, which is basically pattern matching and sort of going, do I like this person? Do I trust them? Do I actually want to be around them? That's the first gatekeeper of the brain that sort of gets you. So it's how you show up in the room is huge about that. I mean, do you look like somebody they want to spend time with? The second part of the brain is the limbic system, the emotional part, if you like, which is the one that wants to feel, have I been understood? Only then do we get to the newest part of our brain, which is the neocortex, which is the rational problem solving stuff. And I think the time poor thing is means that in business, what we often do is we rush to that without getting past the two gatekeepers first. And I think the simple tip is really just to Sarah Jane's point, breathe before you go into any situation, before you switch the Teams call on, before you walk through a room. Just think to yourself, how am I going to show up in this room? Who am I bringing into this space? Just show up as your best self, connect. Don't put on, it's not about putting on an act, but it's about genuinely showing up with presence and warmth. And the warmth is the presence is looking and sounding like you don't want to be anywhere else except right here, right now in this moment.
Fully focused.
Focused, absolutely focused. And then the warmth is about showing that you've considered the other person, that what you are doing is not orientated towards yourself, but it is orientated towards the greater good or the other person or whatever it is. So quite simply, show up well, and then make the first thing that comes out of your mouth something that shows the other person that you have considered them. That's the easiest way to do it.
I think this thing of breathing is so important. I've talked about this quite often. Is this the whole thing of we rush from one meeting to another meeting, and often there's files, sort of lifts, whatever, getting in the way, and and we don't really. I think that there is a sort of mental thing that goes on because we know we've got to, but we don't allow our bodies to rest. And the thing is that it's not just our brains that are going into the meeting, it's our entire being that's going into the meeting. And so I think there's something that I learned some time ago from she was a sort of very, very wise meditation teacher, and she called it the change breath. So if you think about, you're in a meeting and you've had all sorts of stimuli and all that kind of things, loads to remember, taken notes and everything. And then you go out clutching your files or whatever and going straight to another meeting. And that transition, it's so easy if you just sort of, if you kind of like launch into the other meeting, you're still full of what you've just been trying to grapple with. And so this whole thing of actually just physically trying to kind of calm yourself afterward. So go somewhere, even if it's in the lift, just really breathe in through your nose and really feel your diaphragm expanding, and just a big breath in and then a slow breath out through the mouth. And you can do that a couple of times. And what it does, it just frees up the body, because we often feel, we forget sometimes, I think, that we have a body that's giving off all sorts of signals that is taking our head from meeting to meeting. Yes. And so that to actually do that, and it can really start to calm, just clear the brain a little bit.
It's a punctuation point, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And that, I think, it is such an important thing.
It's massively important. I'm doing lots of work on this, actually, trying to get out of my head and back into my body, and also, I mean, if people are working from home, there's the opportunity to go for a walk, like 20 minutes of just physical, get it out through whatever's just happened, walk it out, get it out through your body. And that's not a direction I expected this conversation to go in, but it's so important. And you always have your breath as a support. It's always there. It's got you. So whatever else is going on.
This is the kind of the part of the stories is the stories that you tell by your behaviour.
Yeah,
is what, because if you go in and you're tense, that's going to show. And but it's also the stories you're telling yourself.
I completely
imposter syndrome, all of that stuff.
Kind of connect really clearly that, right, okay, I can deal with this. Let's breathe it out.
Yeah.
And let's focus now on this. And often, I think we don't give ourselves enough chance to do that, to allow the brain and the body to kind of connect.
And it's only a second, isn't it? It's like it's 1 minute, maybe maximum.
Yeah,
exactly.
I just wanted to pick up on something that David, you said a minute ago about warmth. And considering the other person, because it's fascinating. As a voice actor, quite often the direction I get will be warm.
Yeah.
And actually, they don't want me to sound warm. they want the person I'm talking to feel warm.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's that's exactly what you were talking about. Like, you show up and you want them to feel like you've considered them. You want them to feel that being seen. Yeah.
No,
that's good. That's joined a few dots for me.
No, it's interesting. I mean, we often boil this down. We were talking to a client about this yesterday. In fact, we often, when we're working with people, and especially on a particular project, we have these three areas of presence, warmth, and power that we always sort of judge, or sort of, yes, we have a tick box. And it starts with, as I said earlier, the presence of, does this person look and sound as if they don't want to be anywhere else except right here, right now? And then it's the warmth. Do they look and sound as if they have taken the other person into consideration? And then and only then comes the power, which is, do I believe their values? Do I believe their system of belief? Do I believe what they're saying to me? And I think too often, going back to what we said earlier about people being time poor and sort of having KPIs and things like that to hit in business, we sort of go, I've just got to get all my power out, without considering those two incredibly important bits of presence and, as you say, the warmth.
I mean, because that's what leadership is. It's bringing people with you. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's and we that's why we have to think about what we say in certain situations, and I suppose what we do is we help people understand the story that they're in any situation, and allow and give people the wherewithal to be able to decide, okay, how the easy ways of how we're going to tackle this now.
It's funny. I'm about to start a project next week with a big client, and they're working on a massive pitch for a piece of work. And I can almost guarantee that I'll walk in there on Tuesday morning and they present their first draft to me. It'll be something about they're going through their credentials and everything. And my first job will be saying, can you start by saying something that you've learned about them through all the site visits that you've been on? Just connect. Just show that you've been present and that you've listened and that you've understood.
It's all about them. It's all about them. And that is
science. It's not.
But yeah, well, but it kind of is. It isn't, but it is. Yeah. And that's that is the driving engagement, isn't it? That's the connection. That's the communication, and that kind of invisible thread that comes from that connection and the trust and the warmth, and then so it's a pitch that you're going to be working on. So that is the third part of the kind of the three things I said at the beginning, the influencing change. Obviously, they want to win their pitch and they want to influence change. So they're going to be benefiting from all of your experience to help them to do that. And well done them for recognizing that they need a bit of help.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yes, our bank manager thanks them as well.
So what about outside the boardroom and the world of work? Because your DNA framework can help people kind of transform how they connect with other people on a personal level as well. It's not just business. We're all human beings. So can you just sort of speak to that a little bit?
Well, I think, I mean, I have alluded to it in terms of a toddler and
Uncle Fred.
And Uncle Fred. But I remember we were doing we were doing a workshop with some economists, and we were talking them through the structure of the DNA. And one of them said that that he had two small children, and I think it was the NCT. Was it? Was it the NCT or it was some children organisation that they said it in a different way, but the sort of the format of addressing a child so that you can kind of avoid the tantrum and all that kind of thing, or the difficulty, or them feeling frightened and things like that, was indeed a very similar type of idea, that you connect with them at first with something that they understand, and only then can you introduce the negative thing about that something that they can't understand, might not happen because of something. So why don't we do this? And I thought it was that was amazing, wasn't it?
But do you remember that time as well when we were working with that DE&I team at one of our clients, and they were, so there was a team who were driving DE&I initiatives.
What's that? What's DE&I?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh, right. Okay, yes.
Yeah. So they were a team of relatively young people who were they'd been. Basically, they were in charge of getting the leadership to really drive the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative.
So massively important.
Massively important. But of course, the business leaders have a day job to do, and they've got numbers to hit, and so it's actually quite hard to get them to engage with the concept of it. So we were working with them on how they engaged the leadership, and we went back to do a follow up with them. And the person who was in charge of this team said, this is amazing. I mean, it really works. It really works with the management. But I tell you when it really worked even better was last weekend when I was trying to plan out my wedding with my fiance. So there you go.
I mean, and that's a really, really useful example.
It's the test.
Love it. I love it. Okay. Well, I mean, we could talk for another couple of hours, I think, and the rest. So we'll have to stop, but people should buy your book, evidently. I would love you both to plug your brilliant book, because it is brilliant, and I don't usually geek out so much about about the offerings of my guests, but you are all brilliant. Anyway, I'm wittering. Please tell us about the book, because it's been nominated for prizes and it's amazing. So go on, go, plug.
There it is. So the most exciting thing, on September the 10th, we'll be going to Wembley for the Business Book of the Year Awards. And
I get to wear a frock.
You get to wear. Well, I might get to wear a frock.
Yes, maybe.
Yeah. And the lovely thing is, we're nominated. So the Business Book, there are about 8 different categories, and one of the winners of those categories will become Business Book of the Year. What we're thrilled about is that we're in the people, culture and management category, which is fantastic, because essentially that's what the book is about. It's about how you create the culture for the people and manage those people so that change happens. So that's the it hit number 1 on Amazon in UK, US and Australia, and it's up for that award September the 10th in Wembley.
People need to go buy it, don't they? And you are obviously going to win the prize. So yay! We'll all be rooting for you.
It'll just be great being there.
Yeah, it will be great.
So it's very. It's fascinating talking to a load of authors about
it's
what they've
amazing.
written. I mean, that's the really exciting thing.
We went as guests last year, and actually, as Sarah Jane says, being in a room of authors is almost as
all their stories. It's amazing.
Almost as weird as being in a room full of actors.
Yes,
surely not. Well, congratulations! It's an amazing book. It really is.
Thank you, Katie.
But before we go, I'd like to know. We know a little bit about your backstory, but I'd like to know about your story to come. What does your story look like for the next 5 years? And you can answer individually, or you can do it as a couple. It's up to you.
Well, I'm quite enjoying the cuddles. I think there's more of that, please. But
no, I think
it's
do you know I'm a great believer in you create something and just watching it grow. So I don't really have obviously I want it to sort of spread more, I guess, this whole idea. But I'm more concerned, really, or I'm just hopeful that more people really kind of opt for this and kind of get it under their belt. That's what I'd really like. Is there's so much? I mean, politics at the moment. I'm not going to go in there, but I mean, I just it's such a shame because we don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. And we don't deserve lies and deceit and all this sort of thing and all the different stories that are coming out, which is.
I think this is a great point.
It's if you can only sit down and really talk and really discuss without being completely and utterly just one direction all the time, so that it's just beat. Do you know? I think it would be quite nice.
I think it would be. I think it. I mean, obviously the future. I mean, we'd love people to buy the book, and we'd love to work with more people because that's very nice for us personally. But I think the point that Sarah Jane makes is incredibly important. I mean, as you know, Katie, I mean, the power of story is so strong that it can be used for good and it can be used for ill. So to be actually giving people the tools whereby they can use story ethically to really connect and make change. Funnily enough, I wrote an article that was published last week called, it was interesting. The brief was what CEOs can learn from the boring power of Mark Carney, who's the now Prime Minister of Canada. And my premise was, I don't think he's boring at all. What I think he is, he's measured, he's meticulous, and he genuinely connected with the desire of the Canadian people and what they hope for their future. And so I think the more that we can, there are certain elements in this world at the moment who are really clever at telling stories, and they don't really care whether they're true or not.
Oh, yeah.
And they're working. So to be able to give good people the equal power to be able to use these skills ethically.
Yeah.
Yes. The last chapter of our book is called The Only Way is Ethics. So that would be great. And to earn some money alongside.
Love that. And any holidays, desserts you want to try? Anything a little bit lighter than, saving the world with the ethics of inspiring story?
Well, okay. Here's the thing. We're literally back from 5 days. We'd had a very last minute trip to the Netherlands. We've just been in the Netherlands. We were in Amsterdam.
Lovely.
Quite well. But The Hague, which was a real surprise. And we have this pet project that may never, ever happen, but we always talk about it when we go away, is called Toga Travel. Toga stands for Two Old Gits Abroad. Because what we're really good at doing is just sort of getting into the nitty-gritty of somewhere and listening to the stories of people. Yeah. And our favorite trick is we'll find a really good restaurant that we go to, and then we say to the person in charge of it, so where do you reckon we should go next? And the places that we've gone just on recommendation, because we're interested in listening to, their recommendations. Love to do more of that.
Brilliant. Well, I could tell you about the scuba diving holiday I went on based on a recommendation from a taxi driver in Ireland, but unfortunately we don't have time, so we'll save that for the next one, I think. Well, David Pullen and Sarah Jane McKechnie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Of course, we'll make sure that all of the ways that people can connect with you and work with you and buy your book, we'll put all of that information in the show notes, but just tell us as well, how can people find you both?
Well, we've got a brand new shiny website, www.thestoryspotters.com, which has all of the details of how we work, as you said, both within the consulting, coaching, and training space. And then LinkedIn, that's where we are. Both of us are on LinkedIn, and go there at your peril, because we like using LinkedIn quite a lot. So
you're a breath of fresh air on LinkedIn for sure.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both so much. Have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Bye.
Bye. Wow, what a way to kick off season 2. Wasn't that epic? Okay, brace yourself, grab a pen and paper, because here are my key takeaways. Number 1, there are 4 types of story. 1, the stories we tell. 2, the stories we listen for that help us to connect with other people. 3, the stories we present to the world in our behaviour and how we show up. And 4, the stories we tell ourselves. Key takeaway number 2, don't forget your humanity. Listen. We all live through stories, so it's a natural way to communicate and connect with other people and understand one another. I want you to imagine arrows connecting all of this stuff. Story equals communication, equals connection, equals understanding. And understanding leads to trust, which enables collaboration. And that's how we get engagement. 3. But in business, we can sometimes lose sight of that emotional journey of connection and our humanity, and we get bogged down by the facts. Whereas the story spotters think of the facts and the data as the outer spokes of a wheel, with story as the central hub which holds it all together and enables it to turn. 4. breathe, baby, breathe. No matter how busy you are, take a moment to come back to your body. Just breathe. Calm your nervous system. 5. Leadership is bringing people with you. As a leader, you need to understand the story you're in, and you need to understand the DNA of engagement. Dream, nightmare, action, remember? So take time to understand your audience's dreams, and then gently remind them that they'll be facing a nightmare if they don't take the action you want. And before you know it, they'll be putting on their own wellies. Golly, that was a lot, but wasn't it good? And there's so much more great stuff to come in the podcast. In next week's episode, a bit of showbiz.
It was ridiculous that this was my life. I would be maybe going to chat to Meryl Streep in a hotel room for a bit about her latest film. And then I'd be going to a recording studio to chat to Mark Ronson or Jay-Z about their latest album. And then maybe in the evening, I'd go see Beyonce sing at a kind of private album launch thing and repeat that literally every single day for more than a decade.
Natalie Jameson, entertainment reporter and podcast creative, tells us how podcasting is a spectacular way to share stories. And also what to expect if you ever meet Daniel Craig. Essential listening. Okay, I'm off now to practice my story spotting skills. I'm Katie Flammen, and this is Storytelling for Business. Till next time. Goodbye.